Well, a rainy, stormy day at the cemetery seems appropriate for this video topic. Generally, I have a rule of staying away from politics and heavy negativity on this channel for a number of reasons, but primarily in order to create a place that people can go to where they aren't constantly bombarded with every bad thing happening in the world, which the media are all too eager to do, of course. But at the same time, it also feels wrong to not acknowledge this current situation. Out of respect for everyone suffering from the Ukraine war, I'm not monetizing this video, and I will add a humanitarian fundraiser to help Ukrainians. It should pop up below the video or next to it, either way. Should be easy enough to see. So if you're able to, please consider supporting those humanitarian efforts. So, as someone running a channel focused mainly on weapons and fighting, it might surprise you that I'm vehemently opposed to war, pretty much categorically. There are very few instances where I find that a war is truly justified, particularly any form of aggression, starting a violent conflict. There are so many reasons which are given commonly, and the propaganda machine, of course, is the first one that goes to war. That propaganda tanks roll out first, so to speak, because you need to rally the population behind the cause. You need to make them think that this is justified, or at least make them tolerate what's happening. Population of your own country or faction or what have you. And a lot of times, I straight up do not buy the idea that it is in fact justified. Even in some cases of, preemptive self-defense, it's still an act of aggression, right? And in particular, if a war is being started simply to redraw borders on a map, or for some kind of gain, political or economical or whatever, it's just categorically evil, straight up. Even more so because the ones who start the war are not the ones suffering from it. Even if worst case scenario happens, guess what? The leaders will be sitting in the bunkers, will be nice and safe and comfortable. So, in my opinion, it should be required of any leader who wants to start a war to fight at the front lines. If they're not willing to, if they're scared to, if they're unfit to, if they're whatever, maybe they shouldn't start the damn war. Even if it's something like, well, they're too old. Okay, in my opinion, that's part of the problem. Because if you have somebody in a position of power making decisions that will affect people for a long time after this person is gone, maybe there's something wrong with it. Don't you think? This is about as political as I'll get here. As a leader, you should be held to a higher moral standard, not a lower one. You shouldn't get free passes, especially when it comes to making decisions like bombing civilians. I can't stress enough how evil of a decision this is. It's bad enough to start a war. That in and of itself is unethical in my book. Callous old detached men in their ivory towers sending young men to die who barely even understand what the hell is happening and what they're sacrificing their lives to. That in and of itself is horrible. But then, giving orders that will cost civilian lives is monstrous, quite frankly. In whichever form it comes, you're taking the lives of people, you're destroying their homes, you're taking everything they have, and in some cases it took them half a lifetime or more to build what they had. Particularly in an ever toughening economy with more and more income inequality, all of that. The problem here is that things just become numbers at some point, right? If you know someone personally who's being, let's say, robbed on the street or worse, murdered by somebody, horrible tragedy, obviously. You understand that. But if you hear 100,000 people killed, it's just a number, right? But when you think about it, the act of deciding to murder somebody else on the street or in their home or wherever really, and now multiply that by several thousand or tens of thousands or more by giving the order to have all these people killed. Like, it's beyond monstrous. I don't understand why, after thousands of years of raging war, of constantly killing each other, sometimes over the pettiest nonsense, humans still have not evolved past this. And this is what I find incredibly depressing. Like, we've been around for so long, we've killed each other, and I know, I might just be sounding like a tree-hugging hippie here or whatever. I understand that sometimes the decisions made to go to war or whatever, to attack somebody else, the decisions don't happen in a vacuum, right? I understand that they're not unfounded. There's some kind of agenda behind it, some kind of reason, be it moral or whatever. Like, because people sometimes have ideologies and beliefs that justify all this shit. And they're absolutely determined that what they're doing is right. Okay? But just as a species, humanity overall, it's just astonishing to look at this and find that after everything that has happened, we still do the same shit. We're still basically a bunch of tribal cavemen clobbering each other over the us versus them dichotomy. Oh, not my tribe, different tribe, bad. Killing someone from the other tribe is okay because they're not us. That's still what it boils down to. And that's what the propaganda always boils down to. It's always stripping someone's identity, dehumanizing them, portraying them as something less, something other, something not worth saving. That's always what it boils down to. So, but then you see, in this day and age where we have, everybody has a phone, everybody can take videos and pictures and put them on the internet, etc. And now we see a bunch of kids, a bunch of teenagers being sent to the front lines. They hardly even know what the hell they're doing there. Sometimes they're being overtly lied to. Sometimes they're just being threatened. If you don't go and fight, we'll kill you or we'll do this and that to you. How barbaric are we? It sickens me, it disgusts me, and it goes so far as to make me regret sometimes the topic I've chosen for this channel. Generally, I don't really talk about warfare as such. When I talk about weapons and fighting, it's generally in a one-on-one sort of context, dueling and, fantasy adventurers and whatever. Not that I'm in favor of dueling, by the way, just to make that very clear. It is still a very detached kind of interest because there's something fascinating about analyzing, weapons and armor and their pros and cons and how do you defeat something and, different techniques. Like, martial arts can be very much detached from the reality of actual violence and taking lives and all of that. And in media, be it movies, series, video games, books, etc., we most often get the sterilized version of all of this. Takes a bunch of hits, which just drops their HP, and then they're healed and everything is good, right? Even in dark fantasy, quite often when you kill an enemy, like in Dark Souls or Elden Ring, despite there being horrific monstrosities and many horror elements. Well, what happens? You, like with the critical hit, like you run them through with a sword and pull it out while kicking them to the ground, and then they just dissolve into a bunch of pretty sparks, right? There's nobody kneeling on the ground staring at their own entrails trying to stuff them back in, right? That's the reality of war. That, limbs being blown off or chopped off, and just the most horrific suffering you can imagine. Both mental and physical, by the way. It's just glossed over and cleansed. And mind you, there's a big difference between gratuitous violence and just a realistic depiction of the horrors of war. Anyway, so world's messed up, humanity is messed up. I wish I could end with some sort of positive note. Well, the positive note is the fundraiser. Sorry to be a downer, but there's just no way to wrap this topic up in any positive way, nor would I want to. So, thanks for listening, I guess, and good luck to anyone trying to get out of Ukraine or out of Russia, for that matter, if you're one of those people one of the many people who take issue with what their country is doing. And, yeah, obviously, soldiers, good luck getting out of it alive and not losing people you care about, etc., etc. You know. That's it. Take care.